Good evening. The Design Review Board public meeting of December 10th, 2020 is called to order. Due to the COVID-19 novel coronavirus and the health recommendations from the LA County Health Department, the Design Review Board meeting is being conducted virtually and with no members of the public present. The public is encouraged to watch and participate from the safety of their homes to practice social distancing. The meeting can be viewed on local cable TV and is being streamlined online at the city's website at www.glendaleca.gov. For public comments and questions during the meeting, please call 818-937-8100. Again, that number is 818-937-8100. City staff will be submitting the questions and comments in real time to the appropriate person. Current Design Review Board agendas are available by visiting our website at www.glendaleca.gov. Records of the decisions for all projects will be posted online on the Planning Division's website. Please note that any appeal of a case heard today must be filed within 15 calendar days of the Design Review Board decision date. The appeal application is also available online, and you may contact the case planner. The chairperson may reorder agenda items at his discretion. In terms of a roll call, Board Member Minas. Board Member Minas?
You're on mute.
Yes.
Thank you.
Yes, I'm here.
Board Member Smith?
Present.
Board Member Welch?
Present.
And Chair Simonian?
Present.
Thank you. Report regarding posting of the agenda. The agenda for the December 10th, 2020 regular meeting of the Glendale Design Review Board was posted on the bulletin board outside City Hall on December 7th, 2020. Approval of Design Review Board minutes from October the 22nd, 2020. This particular Design Review Board had one case for the Ani Hotel, and the board made a recommendation with comments to council. Is there a motion to approve the minutes?
Lilia, this is Board Member Simonian. I have some comment on the minutes.
Yes.
I had an opportunity to review them, and I think staff has done a really good job summarizing our holistic comments, because there were a lot of comments, and all the board members certainly had a lot to say about this massive project. There are bits and pieces, or I should say some comments that haven't made it to the minutes that I think are important to consider at this point. In regards to site planning, staff, of course, has mentioned that
Yes, Mr. Simonian, we have him. We're ready. I'm sorry, Mr. Simonian, we can't hear you. Chair Simonian, you're on mute, I believe.
no, I'm not on mute. I'm using my telephone.
We can hear you now.
We can hear you now.
It's weird. I've called them with a landline, and my screen keeps on going in and out on my computer screen, which has nothing to do with the phone line. So I'm not sure what is happening. However, I'm glad that everybody could hear me at the moment. We made some comments that the outdoor common areas need to integrate the ability for restaurants to have outdoor dining areas. That was a comment that was made, which I think was made by several different board members. We also had made some comments regarding the existing open space and the way the candidate had, or the applicant had categorized it as part of their open space that they were providing. But we had had some in-depth discussions about the existing open space on the campus that is not being touched should not be counted towards the open space that applicant is providing. So that is, I think, something that staff should look over as well. In regards to mass and scale, item number 1, where it says scale of project is a bit excessive. I don't recall anybody saying bit excessive. I think it was overly excessive. And so I certainly wouldn't use bit in there. There were comments that it had just way too many floors, et cetera. And so that was, I think, a recurring theme. In regards to number 4, I think I was one of the board members that thought the articulation modulation was nice and the design language was nice. However, at the same time, I think I had made comments that it is excessive in size, and I think those should be coupled together. Another item for everyone to consider was that there was discussion in regards to the original downtown specific plan, the study that had called for addition of hotel units as something necessary for our city. And we made comments indicating that a lot of hotel rooms have come online since the downtown specific plan was created. And as such, that should be something that's pointed out into how much of a need there was initially in the specific plan, how much of that hotel has been met as far as hotel use, and what is an outstanding number that's yet to be met. And of course, that may be modified with the COVID world moving forward. But that said, with the 800 some odd units, seems excessive in that as well. Furthermore, I think in regards to parking, there was a lot of discussion about parking. I remember there was comments or even discussion of how the applicant was integrating or dovetailing some of the existing parking numbers into their parking count, which was incorrect. After a lot of back and forth, we were able to identify the real true net number of parking that was added. And during that discussion, it was discussed and the applicant admitted that the existing office is underparked. And so that is a separate item, but moving forward with the large unit sizes where they were more in line with residential unit sizes versus hotel sizes, that coupled with the parking reductions and the FAR increases that they were seeking with the hotel use was certainly questioned by this board. And so I think all those items need to be perhaps a little better reviewed to make sure that council gets our holistic thoughts and ideas.
Thank you, Chair Simonian. Jay is actually taking down these notes.
Yeah, I think I captured most of what you said, but I didn't have a pen for the very beginning. So let me just go back on site planning. You were talking about the publicly accessible open space. I think we sort of tried to distill that into that first bullet point, but I think you want us to open that up a bit in terms of questioning whether the calculation of the area, the open space right now that includes the area around the existing buildings. I think you were saying that you don't think that should count toward the total open space. Is that what I heard?
Correct. There was that exact discussion, Jay, in that the existing common open space in and around the gym, in and around the office buildings, et cetera, that weren't really connected or weren't really even utilized should certainly not be integrated and counted towards the common open space that this new project is providing.
Yeah, I'll double check with the case planner on that. I'm not sure that we're going to be able to exclude that. And so if that doesn't meet code, I don't know that we'd want to put that in. But would you be happy if we still talked about the integration between the new building and the existing open spaces, trying to improve connection points?
Yes, but on that previous point, I think it should be clearly itemized, whereas this is the common open space that's existing. and this is common open space that's proposed and new. So there should be really no mixing of the two, or if they are mixed, they should certainly be delineated separately. So I don't think that's a stretch.
Okay, we can put that in there, and then we'll clarify any code issues for council if we need to. And I think I got everything else. I agree that using the word "a bit" is not up to our standards, so that shouldn't have made it through the editing process. I apologize.
Right. There was one more comment that Board Member Welsh had made, in that this is a campus, it's a city block. Applicant was not making any proposals to change any of the facades of the existing buildings. And there were some comments in that perhaps some facades, or most, or whatever it is, should be integrated somehow into the project.
Yeah, or at least some consideration given to the fact that they're including this whole campus in there and basically using it to justify the added height that they're giving to these hotel units that they wouldn't otherwise be able to claim if they were just using the building site itself.
Okay, we'll add something to that effect, definitely.
And
Okay, well, we'll talk about the parking reduction coupled with the hotel unit number and sizes. We can mention that there are lots of hotels downtown. Ultimately, that's not a design issue, but when this goes to council, I guess we can note that the board was cognizant of the fact that there may not be a need for 800 plus new rooms.
correct. And, and the applicant, in fact, let it slip, I think, once, where he was talking about move-ins, right? So, what are move-ins? We have 800 square foot units, some 1,000 square foot units, and the applicant is talking about move-ins when he's proposing, such a large hotel project. And so that needs to be clarified. Well, why, when the average U.S. hotel size is going dramatically down per square foot, is this project, doubling and tripling the average unit size of a U.S. hotel?
We all have our thoughts on that issue, so.
Correct. We know we're in good hands, Mr. Platt, with staff summarizing all this.
Okay, I'm sure we'll be looking at the tape to make sure we get all of this, but I've got the notes for now, so.
It's such a large project, and it just deserves really, I think, us putting on belts and suspenders and really dotting all the I's and crossing all the T's to make sure that all the comments were properly portrayed and illustrated for council to consider.
Sounds good, thank you.
Thank you. Are there any other comments on the minutes? Oh, Ms. Francesca Smith?
Hi, thank you. I noticed that my question regarding fire life safety didn't make it into the minutes. And I was curious about whether or not Glendale could provide service to a project that high.
Fire life
It's
safety.
since been answered.
The project has been vetted for interdepartmental comments, and I believe those comments were submitted by the Glendale Fire Department. That has been addressed or will be addressed during that stage. So we will double check then and make.
Yeah, we can certainly add it as just discussion from the board.
It was. Thank you. I since got an answer, but yes.
Okay, thank you.
What was the answer?
Let me unmute. They said, I got a call from the fire marshal. He said the city could provide fire life safety protection, but that the configuration of buildings would have to be much different.
Okay.
We
So
will
that
definitely
was not
confirm
the-
that with the fire marshal. Are there any other comments or questions?
I had a comment also regarding the traffic circulation within and from the facility, because everyone agreed at that time that Sanchez Street already is congested with traffic in the afternoon, and how this excessive or added traffic condition is going to affect the delays in moving on Sanchez Avenue. I didn't see what kind of provisions or, in circulation. You just mentioned that how the deliveries, Uber and the service within the facility will occur, but there was no mention about the impact of the cars, vehicles coming out of this hotel complex to Sanchez, which is already congested. How would that be addressed?
Okay, well, we'll add a bullet point to the circulation section, focusing on Sanchez.
Thank
That's a very good point, Board Member Menas, because there was quite a bit of discussion about the fact that is there street winding occurring on Sanchez and Brand? Does the eastbound on-ramp onto the 134 require an extra lane because of this project? So all those components were discussed holistically, which should certainly make them, those comments should make themselves into the draft minutes for us.
That's right.
Okay, forgive us, it's harder to do this for advisory hearings than it is for actual binding hearings where we have the conditions laid out and we talk about them in depth. But we'll try to do better on future advisory hearings, and we'll definitely clean this up and try to capture all of your thoughts.
All right, if there are no other comments, perhaps we'll go ahead and continue the minutes to the next board meeting, which is slated for January the 14th. Is that acceptable? I see nods.
Yes, concurred.
Which I believe ties in well to the city council hearing for this project.
Correct.
So we'll have, we won't be able to put it in the staff report, but we could present it to council before the hearing.
So we will continue the minutes. Which brings us then to today's agenda. We actually have 3 cases on today's agenda. I'd like to announce that the last 2 cases, one being 519 Solway Drive, and the next one being 1580 Glenmont Drive, are being continued, and they're taken off calendar due to issues with the story poles not being put up in time. So these 2 cases will be continued to the January 14th meeting date, and they will be re-noticed. So new notices will be going out to all the occupants and property owners within the 500-foot radius. But at this point in time, these are tentatively scheduled for January the 14th. With that said, that leaves us 1 case on tonight's agenda. This would be case number PDR 2012420 for 1625 Hasbeth Lane. Ms. Vista Azadi, the case planner, will make a presentation.
All right, good evening and thank you. Can you all hear me? Yes, okay. Do you want me to just say click or does,
Yes.
you know? Okay, next slide, please. The project site is an 18,705 square foot irregularly shaped interior lot located in the R1.
We're not seeing any presentation.
Oh.
We're just seeing a blank screen.
Okay. 1 second, please, then.
At least you can hear me.
1 second.
Could you please describe the project, Mrs. Adi?
The images.
Now we see the screen.
Now you do see the screen?
Great.
Okay.
Okay, so
Yes, we see it now.
the project site is an 18,705 square foot irregularly shaped interior lot located in the R1R zone, FAR District 2. The lot has frontage on Hasbeth and Darrell Drive.
Vista, I'm sorry to interrupt there's something with the glitch in the other screen.
Okay, no worries. Just let me know.
There you go. If you don't mind starting again, please.
Okay. Third time's the charm, yes. The project site is an 18,705 square foot irregularly shaped interior lot located in the R1R zone, FAR District 2. The lot has frontage on 2 streets, Hasbeth Lane and Darrell Drive. Next slide, please. Originally developed in 1955, the site currently features a 1-story, 2,847 square foot single-family residence with an attached 2-car garage, a swimming pool, and covered patio areas located at the rear. The hillside lot slopes up from Hasbeth Lane with the existing and proposed development located on an existing flat pad. Access to the site is via an existing driveway located along Hasbeth that will be maintained. The applicant is proposing a 175 square foot addition to the existing house, enlarging the front and rear covered patio areas, changing the architectural style from ranch to modern, and that it will include removal of the entire roof, which will be done to create a flat roof with parapets, and then rebuilding the gazebo in the rear yard with a geometric roof to match the design of the house. The proposal does involve demolition of more than 50% of outside wall and roof area, which classifies the project as new construction, and that's why it's required to obtain DRB approval. Next slide, please. Overall, the site planning remains relatively unchanged, with the exception of the areas of the addition, as well as the enlarged patio areas at the front and rear. The L-shaped house will remain internally oriented with the main entrance facing the interior motor court and shielded from Hasbeth Lane by the garage. The project will also maintain existing retaining walls with new glass guardrails proposed adjacent to walkways. There are also some new side yard gates shown with a horizontal wood design that's compatible with the style of the new house. Next slide, please. New drought-tolerant landscaping is proposed throughout the site that will complement the building design. The plans also indicate new decorative paving materials for the driveway, but there is no other information provided. A staff condition requires the applicant to provide us details for review and that consideration be given to a permeable paver. Staff is also recommending a condition that the large paved area by the garage and front of the building be redesigned to minimize hardscape and introduce more drought-tolerant landscaping, as well as along the interior setback adjacent to the neighbor at the driveway. Next slide, please. For reference, this is an image of the proposed floor plan for the new house. Next slide, please. Overall, the mass and scale of the project is appropriate to the modern design concept and the context of the neighborhood, which features a majority of 1-story single-family residences. The proposed house will remain 1-story, which is consistent with the existing conditions and neighborhood pattern. The design does feature varied parapet heights that have been incorporated. The tallest sections of the parapets are too tall, which creates a sense of visual weight that distracts from the overall horizontality of the design. This also occurs at the entry. Staff condition of approval would require that these areas be reduced in height to address this issue. Next slide, please. Oh, that's the next slide? The overall height of the new house will be 15 feet 4 inches, which is a reduction in height from what's currently there. Currently, the house is 19 feet 4 inches. The primary reason for this is the new design with the flat roof. Next slide, please. The project features a flat roof with a geometric linear design and staggered parapet heights. This is unique and appropriate to the modern design concept. The roof forms over the outdoor areas feature 3 types of materials that are varied throughout the design and placement: an angled metal trellis oriented towards Hasbeth Lane, horizontal Trex cladding, and a copper-colored metal roof canopy. Next slide, please. In terms of design and detailing, the consistency in the use of materials, colors, and linear forms throughout the projects help to reinforce the modern design. The entryway is appropriately integrated into the design and features a covered recessed single-door entry oriented away from the street, which is similar to what's currently there. The design also includes a large wood door with rectangular glass panels and a side light. Next slide, please. This slide shows the other 2 elevations of the project. One, the south elevation, which is adjacent to the neighbor, and then the backyard elevation. The proposed materials for the house include stucco in 2 varying shades of gray, horizontal Trex cladding, a sheet metal roof canopy in copper, metal awning in charcoal, and board-formed concrete cladding panels. The design also features a large sliding glass door for the outdoor patio, mirrored glass garage doors, and fiberglass windows. Staff is recommending 1 condition of approval as it relates to the light fixtures. The design is appropriate, however, it's not clear on the drawings where these will be located, and so staff would like to review that prior to plan check submittal. Next slide, please. The project also features a new gazebo in the rear yard adjacent to the existing pool in a similar location to the structure currently on site. The design of this gazebo is consistent with the new house through the use of materials, colors, and features a similar geometric roof form. Next slide, please. As it relates to public comments received, staff has received 2 comment letters, one from an adjacent neighbor and one from the Glendale Historical Society. All comments received are on file with the planning department and part of the public record. Copies of all comment letters have also been provided to you and the applicant for review. Staff is recommending approval of the project with the conditions as noted in the staff report. That concludes my presentation, and staff is available for any questions. Thank you.
Thank you so much for the presentation. Do any of the board members have questions for staff?
Yes, I do.
I believe Board Member Welsh was first. Go ahead, Board Member Welsh.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, I was wondering if staff would like to comment on the historical nature that was raised by the Historical Society's letter. I think that is something I'd like to hear your opinions on.
Sure. The Historical Society's letter suggests that there was no environmental review done. We always do environmental review on properties that are going to either be demolished or have substantial alterations. We don't think that this is it's a very modest example, let's say, of an Asian-influenced ranch house. The letter from the Historical Society identifies a few features that they think are character-defining, I would say, to that style. One of them, in terms of the front door, there's also a door next to the garage, I completely disagree with. It does have a fantastic roof. I will give the house its roof. It is amazing. A roof alone does not make a historic structure. The pavilion at the back is very nice, and it is designed by Boyd Georgie, a modernist architect, as the Historical Society notes. It's even possible that Georgie designed the house. We have no record of that. It's pure speculation. Even if he did, he's actually quite a talented architect on the few properties that I'm familiar with, including a fantastic house in the San Rafael neighborhood in Pasadena. He did the Pasadena High School. He did the Altadena Public Library, which I think has been altered. But even if this is the work of an architect whose name we're familiar with, it doesn't mean that it's significant just because of that. So I don't find anything in the Historical Society's comment letter that suggests that this is eligible for the Glendale Register. They mention the one Asian-influenced ranch house that we do have listed on Greenmont Drive, and say that this house is comparable to that house. That is completely not true, in my opinion. The house on Greenmont Drive is chock full of interesting architectural features and embellishments all the way around the house that give it this very much Asian-influenced character, and that's part of why the Historic Preservation Commission chose to designate it. So, we don't find merit in this letter, and we believe the board can move forward with a decision tonight. If the Historical Society were to disagree with any decision, if there were an approval, the appeal process is available for that kind of disagreement.
Okay, thank you. Next question would be, in your conditions, you talked about reducing that, the top of that highest parapet, which reaches to 15 foot 4 inches. What were you thinking about bringing it down to the same level as everything else, or somewhere in between? Can you elaborate a little bit on that?
Yeah, one of the nicer features of this design is that there is some shifting in the plane or the heights of the various roof forms. It's really just, there's the heavy projection that kind of actually pushes toward the street. I can't remember which elevation that is, but it's definitely the street elevation. There were a couple of points where the parapets feel very heavy and out of character with the lighter, shorter parapets or fascias around the rest of the house, or the projecting canopies. So we just thought trying to keep it in balance with that, but not necessarily make it the same.
Okay, thank you. That's it for me.
Any other board members have questions?
Thanks. I have a question. Mr. Platt and Vilia, whose last name I'm not that good at, did you all make a site visit? Have you been to this property?
I have not.
So you evaluated it from?
Photographs and aerial views.
You made the conclusion without going there that it didn't require an intensive evaluation. I'm following your logic.
Yes.
Thank you.
Do we have any more questions for staff at this point? Board Member Minas.
Yes, I had a chance to drive by the site, and the building pad, the existing building pad, occurs between two slopes. The slope in the back is, I just eyeballed it, it's quite steep slope. And then, of course, the front slope also, it's just moderate. I didn't see any cross-section through the building to show the footprint of the new building with respect to the descending and ascending slope from the building pad. The reason I say this is because many of the old houses constructed in Los Angeles County, including Glendale, do not meet the horizontal setback of the structure from the ascending slope. I just want to make sure that, considering that the valuation of the cost of the construction because of extensive remodeling work probably will exceed 50% of the value of the existing building. The new footprint of the building should fully conform with the new building code. I just wanted to make sure that we address the safety of the new building with respect to the new code requirements and considering very steep cut slope condition behind the residence.
I would defer to the applicant, Mr. Khachikian, and Ms. Naravian. However, This project will be required to go through the plan check process with building and safety, and these issues would be vetted during that process with their department. Building and safety did not note any major concerns with this scope of work when the project was routed. If something does change about the project that is significant as it relates to building and safety requirements, the project may have to come back to DRB for consideration, and then I would defer back to the architect. They may have already analyzed this through the building code. So I would direct that question to him.
Okay, this is Sarkis. As far as the codes are concerned, everything should be in compliance. Building footprint itself has not altered from the original. And there is a cross-section, a site cross-section on sheet 12. I don't know if you've seen that. Try to share it.
And apologies, Mr. Nora, we probably need to have staff be asked these questions and answer the questions at this point in time, and then we will turn the matter over to you for your presentation, and perhaps you can answer at that point. All right, thank you. Board members, are there any other questions for staff?
So if we have no more questions for staff, let us start the public portion of the presentation by the applicant.
Okay, so I'm back online.
Yes.
I'm just gonna turn back to the architect.
And if you don't mind, if stating both your names and your address for the record, please.
Naravian, 409 West Broadway, Glendale, California, 91204.
Sarkis Khachikian, same address.
Thank you.
Thank you for the presentation of the project. I think that was pretty comprehensive. Two comments I have, I guess, in response to, I'll start with the design components first. The request to reduce the height, overall height. I would like to correct that the overall height of the building, which is basically the parapet height, is at 12 feet 0 inches, and the entry massing piece is the one piece that extends above that to 15 feet 4 inches, would be the highest point on the building. And the argument for that is the goal was to have an overall horizontal sense to the building, certain components being vertical points of interest, like it would pay your attention to the entry of the building. So that was the main purpose of having that entrance be right between the tall element and the overall buckle of the L-shaped building. So we're hoping that we can keep massing. We actually spend an extensive amount of time studying the massing of the building with the owner. She's been very hands-on and with a lot of positive feedback. And again, like massing studies we've done are kind of a result of her desires of what she's looking for, plus shadow sunlight studies and the overall idea behind the building, where the major components are horizontal, with specialty areas highlighted with higher verticals. So, I mean, I guess that's something we would be discussing with staff down the road, since that's a recommendation that we had to do. As for footprint, again, as I mentioned, the footprint has not changed from the existing building. The only addition is to the front porch area. It's a minor addition. Overall, quantity of change that we're dealing with is due to the removal of the roof, and because of the required sister framing of the remaining walls to tie in the new parapets, that's that's the portion that's being calculated in the overall total demolition area. So technically, it's the same wall that's staying there. We're just scissor framing into it. The other comment, the big one, I guess, that kind of surprised us all this morning was Historical Society letter we received. We hadn't heard anything about the building or the site being concerned that to that extent. And we've done research. I mean, I noted that to me when I first looked at the structure on our first site visit, it was essentially a Dutch gable roof style with minor changes to the style at the skirts. Yes, the original architect has kind of utilized that aesthetic to kind of make it more Asian, and it does have that appearance. But after today's letter, I've been being for Boyd Orgy's designs, and can't say I found anything else that's similar. Property-wise, all the property listings don't designate the site as a specialty site, a special architect, or anything. Nothing. There's no designation that raised any red flags for us. So we're really hopeful we can move forward. We're in full agreement with Board Member Walsh's assessment on that, as far as that goes. I think that's pretty much what our.
I think it was Mr. Platt who made that.
So that would be our comments.
Well, thank you very much. Board members, do we have any questions for the applicant designer?
I have one question, if you please, Mr. Chair. I'd like to hear from the architect about these the facade column features and what they represent and how they work into the design.
Okay, those features were originally requested, a request from the homeowner, add some kind of an interesting sculptural element to the front facade. So when you enter the driveway, you park your cars, there's a sense of something more going on for the facade than just a blank facade wall going, like the typical what you see. So it's basically just a design element feature. Maybe you can do it as a sculptural component to the facade. There's no hidden meaning behind it. It's not serving as a shade device or anything like that. But the overall idea of the overhangs, the roof parapet, and the wooden trellises that are coming off of it was all an integration of different massing studies of vertical elements hitting other elements and kind of creating an appealing aesthetic. Like I said, we did a lot of massing studies where sitting with the owner, we went through different views, 3D views, looking at what works as a massing design for the building itself. And with my feedback on certain things that didn't work, trying to capture a nice balance to the weight of massing is the essential goal.
Thank you for that feedback. Board members, do we have other questions for the applicant? Okay. With that, then we'll open up public comments if there are callers that are on queue. Ms. Simonides, do we have any callers waiting for us to bring on?
Yes, we have 2 callers this evening at this time. The first one is Andrew Allison. Andrew Allison, you're on the air.
And,
yes,
and please,
good evening,
Ms.
board
Simonides,
members
if,
Yes.
if you would make sure
You can hear me?
that the timer is set for 3 minutes.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Thanks, board members, for this opportunity to comment on the project. The letter that we sent, I'm hopeful it was distributed to everyone.
Your name for the record,
it's
sir?
been referred to, and Jay has gone through and just kind of talked about some of the points that we made. But we would just ask that,
Sir,
that
the speaker, if you would
the
please
design
speak
board, design
and
review
state your
board
name
give
for the
further
record.
consideration to this house. We do maintain that it is a good example of Asian influence mid-century modern design, and its association with this prominent architect, Boyd Georgie, is worth further consideration as well. We've noted the distinctive features of the house. We do feel like it is on par with the building, the other house, that's the Asian mid-century that we referred to earlier. Again, just it's worth further consideration and further examination to take a closer look as to whether this, on its architectural merit and its association with Boyd Georgie, would merit further evaluation and consideration. So thank you for your time.
Thank you very much. Next speaker.
The next speaker is Kathy Yurka. Ms. Kathy Yurka, you're on the line.
Hi, thank you very much, Chair Simonian and members of the Design Review Board. I've tried really hard to wean myself off of compulsive commenting on projects at the Design Review Board, which is hard given my role on the Verdugo Woodlands West Homeowners Association and then my past role with TGHS. But the proposal for this property, there's something about this property that just really I can't get past. Asian-influenced modern ranch-style homes are very rare, and I just find this such an arresting example because of the extraordinary roof and the pavilion. And I know it has other features as well, but it seems like such a shame to destroy them. There's one example of an Asian-influenced modern ranch in the Nia Drive Historic District, and it's not as remarkable as this one. Previous owners removed some of those Asian-influenced features without a permit. They've not been replaced yet. And just watching Glendale's architectural heritage fall away feature by feature just is extremely frustrating. It does, I have to say, bother me that this house was declared not historic, not eligible for the Glendale Register without a site visit. I don't know why the Glendale Historical Society had discovered that the cabana was designed by a notable modern architect when it's right there in the permit file. We've just heard it acknowledged that the house could have been designed by Boyd Georgie, but without a site visit, it's been declared not an example worth preserving. I hope you can understand why the preservation community finds this so troubling. If the DRB is going to give staff's opinion weight, I would hope they would suggest maintaining the pavilion. And I have to say, I'm sure I have no historic preservation grounds on which to stand for doing that. But it's such a beautiful feature, the way that it floats in the backyard. It was designed, we know for sure, by a major architect, and it complements the in-ground oval pool so well. I would hope the applicants would see that there might be some value in kind of treasuring the mid-century origins of this property, even if the Design Review Board votes not to investigate further whether the whole property is worthy of the Glendale Register. I think there's a very good case to be made that it is. I just want to thank you very much for your time. Bye-bye.
Thank you very much. Are there any more callers on queue?
Oh, apologies. 1 second, please.
Ms.
No,
Simitides?
yes, apologies. There are no other callers on the line, Chair Simonian.
Okay. We could go back to the applicant for a rebuttal, and you do not need to have a rebuttal. However, if you choose so, you could speak on the fact. You've already made some comments about the historic nature or your thoughts of it, so you don't have to comment if you don't want to use time.
I would like to just quickly hit on it. With respect to the historical aspects of it, the way it's situated on the hillside, when you're driving up and around the property, you don't really see any significant portion of pavilion, how it relates to the pool, how it relates to the rest of the structure. You may be able to see it from the street up above, but you'd have to go to the edge of the street, look down, and you may be able to see it. But again, there's vegetation and landscaping that surround it. And although it is a beautiful structure, at the end of the day, it's like you keep it for the sake of keeping it, or you just move forward with modern tendencies, right? Because again, it's not like a stick standing out in any significant manner. It's not located in a special location that might highlight that style. It's just the style within other ranch homes and modern homes and Mediterranean style homes that surround it. That would be, I guess, my 2 cents worth. With respect to the historical aspect, as an architect, I do appreciate historical architecture and significance to it, I guess. So,
Thank you very much. Are there any questions, Ms. Board Member Smith? Go ahead.
Hi, thanks. I think this is actually more for staff than for the applicants. Thank you very much. I recognize that that the historic significant issue is not something that you all would think of, and it is, as nearly as I can tell, unfortunately, an error of the city. So it's absolutely not your fault, and for that, I feel bad for you. So I wanted to point out that in the Secretary of the Interior has standards for identification of historic properties, and making a professional judgment without a site visit is not really considered a professional practice. SHPO, the California Office of Historic Preservation, does not accept Google photos. You have to have high-resolution photos that you have taken of your own, even to prove something is not significant. The standards for identification in Standard 3 state that explicit procedures for record keeping need to be taken. And that doesn't mean saying something is not historic without looking at it. It entails archival research and explicit field survey. So unfortunately, the fact that it wasn't intensively surveyed and it wasn't even reviewed in person by the person or the agency, shall I say, that's making the judgment that it's not historically significant is a significant problem, since we're there.
Thank you, Board Member Smith, for the comment. It's interesting because the letter from the Historic Society was dated today. And so it is a last minute effort by the Historic Society to try to get the word out. And I'm not sure what the protocol is, but I'm sure staff has followed city's protocol on this like they do on any other project. And so does Mr. Platt go out and visit every single house that's being proposed or for a minor renovation in the city? I doubt it. Most of the time it's probably the case planners. Again, this letter came out of left field on the last day. And so I think there's more to it than just comments. But with that, I'd like to close the public portion. Mr. Minas, do you want to go first?
Basically, I like the idea of rebuilding an older house with minor alteration of the footprint of the building, and I welcome the project.
Thank you, Mr. Minas. Board Member Walsh.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I think there are points for about the historical nature of resources in general. I think more inclined to agree with Mr. Platt than with the Historical Society, because having done a site visit myself, I'm not necessarily convinced that this is, would warrant being considered a resource. So with that, I'll just speak towards the design of the project. Overall, I like the design. I like, clean, modern designs. I asked specifically about these facade column features because they help balance the facade, but I normally don't like cluttering modern designs with superfluous kind of additions just for the sake of it. And I'm also troubled by the fact that, calling it out as a structural element, but then covering it in stucco didn't strike me as, calling it out as a sculpture. That's like just creating some bands for the sake of balancing something from a design perspective. So I would, think about changing that material and making it something that, if you're going to call it sculpture, make it look like sculpture. It looks like just stucco bands to me, and that doesn't necessarily strike me as a good way to go about creating some kind of a sculptural element. I also want to speak to the what they call the roof projection that is on the street facing view. That really kind of stands out as a protuberance that is excessively massive. And I would like to see that scaled down. I think maybe Jay was referring to that when he was talking about that, because he was referencing something facing the street.
That's true, yes.
And so I would definitely like to see that. That I don't think that the condition properly reflects that being how we're addressing that. So I'd like to clarify the condition on that. Because if the condition, and I'm referring to, I think it was condition number 3, was referring to reducing the height, including the highest point, but I don't think that the design should have that highest roof line reduced. I like how it juxtaposes the rest of the design. It has a little pop up there at that point. I think that works. So I don't necessarily think that needs to be reduced in size, but I do think that roof projection that faces the street should be scaled back or even eliminated in some way. So those would be my comments.
Thank you, Board Member Welsh. Board Member Smith.
Board Member Smith, we can't hear you.
Thanks so much. I thought I had unmuted myself. Believe it or not, I do have some comments on this. First, I wanted to go with the comprehensive design guidelines. In the first chapter, 1.1.1, it says, if it is an identified or a potential historic resource under CEQA, further environmental review will be required. It seems that it has been pointed out that it is a potential historical resource. And as I said before, I feel like it's very unfortunate for the homeowners, because this did come out of left field. Unfortunately, this case came up on Thursday, and that's when the rest of everyone else finds out about it. So 1.6.1, further environmental review will be required. I do believe absolutely that an intensive survey needs to be performed. Whether this property is historically significant or not, it would answer the question. And that would involve, as you know, a site visit by the person who performs the analysis. Boyd Georgie property was recently locally designated in Pasadena as the work of a master. So I don't understand how this is being poo-pooed. It can't be exempt from CEQA if it would cause material impairment to the significance of the historical resource. While the design I can see is consistent with itself for the most part. I agree about the angled feature that faces the street. The rest of it is very rectilinear, so I think that if this moves forward, that should be a condition that it be removed. I noticed that the plans are inconsistent. On sheet G1, it says remodel of existing gazebo under number 11, scope of work. Then under sheet A1, site plan, it goes on to say gazebo to be demolished. So reviewing the plans was a bit confusing. The majority of the residents I see is proposed to be demolished, as well as the gazebo, in order for this family to receive the property they want. I was curious whether the concept of embodied energy was considered in any way, because there's a house there and they're going to put a house that is in the same configuration with a few rooms different and larger. And it seems to me that it would be possible to do alterations and still get what the family is looking for. And if the house were retained in a more meaningful way, the State Historic Building Code should be used if it were found, if there were a reason to keep it, e.g. it were a local historical resource. The fact that it's not visible from the street doesn't really make it historically significant or not. As you know, it doesn't have to be visible to the street. I did make a site visit and I was charmed by the neighborhood and the fact that most of the houses are sort of low scale, rambling ranches, etc., with different concepts. I think that the original contractor built the house next door, just up the hill. I think demolishing a house with really unique design features and geometry and replacing it with a nice property, but I don't think it has the excitement that the potential historic resource has. The real shame is that it would use the existing plan, foundation, etc., some of the low walls, when it could be a pretty exciting rehabilitation with the addition of some larger rooms and just a few things that are sort of what you're proposing. I noted that the window and door schedule was inconsistent, just saying that the windows and doors would be locally sourced. I don't know what manufacturer that is. I was very troubled by, I recognize my taste is not everyone's taste, but the mirrored glass garage door, which was shown on sheet 8A as frosted glass, then on A15, it becomes mirrored glass, 2 garage doors, or a double garage door. It's not really integrated into the rest of the design. There are no other mirrored features. And I see that in the comprehensive design guidelines for single family houses under color, it says use of the following colors / materials is discouraged. Highly reflective materials and colors, especially that produce glare. So it just seems like it would be a poor choice in that area where holding a mirror to a dry plant could start a fire. Also in chapter 2 under finished materials, it says materials should be used that reduce the transfer of heat into or out of the building. I thought the door was a little too high at 7 feet 11. It says under B3 that entries should not be overscaled. I was curious about the copper roof overhang because it's called copper and then it says it's painted and I don't really know what it is. On sheet A15, the front door is described as double height. I'd like to hope that's a mistake, but at 7 feet 11, it becomes kind of an overscaled door. I saw lots and lots and lots of paving, which was called out. The driveway being decorative paving surface, note number 9 in A2 was a little vague. I know the city of Glendale requires decorative paving. I was curious about roof access because it would make an extraordinary terrace, but I'm not sure where the solar panels would go if this was being considered a new building. So I feel like this is uncomfortable for the applicants, and for that, I absolutely, I'm very sorry for that the city hadn't even noted the fact that this could be a historic property without going there. So I find that as proposed, the project does not comply with the comprehensive guidelines. So because it's a potential historic resource as defined in CEQA, I think it would be nice if the owner, it would be beneficial if the owner would consider modifying and retaining the design as it is, but adding rooms, which is absolutely possible. I think that roof form is extraordinary on both the main house and on the cabana. Unfortunately, the project should be analyzed for impacts under CEQA if it is a historical resource. It's a rare type, it's the work of a master, and it hasn't been intensively evaluated by the lead agency. So for those reasons, unfortunately, while you seem like lovely people, I can't support this project.
And if I
And I
can
can answer questions if in the.
I just wanted to jump in on one point that Board Member Smith made. The footprint of the house is being retained. There are no issues of demolition and embodied energy. The house remains. The roof is being removed from the house, and that's why it's being heard as new construction. It's a technicality in our code. Over 50% of the roof area and wall area is being removed, but the walls are staying intact. The house is having a small addition put on it at the front. So I just wanted to clarify that for the board members.
Thank you so much, Mr. Platt, because so embodied energy would exist in the windows, most of the walls that are being removed, and especially in that giant framed roof and the materials therein. So embodied energy is in the materials. So by retaining just the foundation, which is a great idea and a good way to go.
I'm sorry. The walls are staying. This house is not being demolished. The roof is being demolished. And
a lot of the walls are being retained, Mr. Platt, a lot of the walls are being retained up to about 42 inches. And above that, where the windows are being removed, the roof is being removed. So there you have it.
Well, you can address that with the architect if you wanted to open the hearing again. I just wanted to make it clear to the board that this is not a demolition of this property. It's only under our code that we're calling it new construction. Embodied energy is a concept that we all understand and appreciate, but the board routinely allows new construction on the sites of previously constructed buildings. And if we took that into account, we would never have new construction, and that's not the board's purview. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Platt, for chiming in. I don't want to open the public portion at this point. Board Member Smith, go ahead. I was going to speak, but it seems you have more to say, so go ahead.
Thanks, I do. I didn't do a takeoff on the amount of material that would be carted off of the property, but I believe it would be a substantial amount, and the steel windows that would be lost. I know there have been a few window replacements here and there, but if you were to replace those windows with steel windows, you would be making about a 100-year investment. Steel windows cost a lot and they last a very long time. So if it were possible to rethink this project where more of the house were retained, I would be very excited about supporting the project.
Thank you, Board Member Smith. The thing about being a chairman is, or chairperson, is you get to go last. And so I've heard everyone's comments, and I got to say, I agree with bits and pieces with all my board members. In regards to the design, I think it is a well-designed house. I think it sits very well onto the site. I like the use of the materials. I like the way the shapes are integrated into the design. I also like the way that they've kept the original footprint of the house. There's been an effort to minimize grading in this hillside area, and they've been able to utilize the pad to its potential. I think also important to note, and I believe there was a neighbor that chimed in as well via a comment letter, that this house is a one-story proposal. It's not a two-story, which is quite nice, because in this hillside area it's terraced, and so once you have a two-story proposal, it does at times get in the way of the neighbors' views, etc. In regards to the elevations and some of the comments made by staff, I think, or in my opinion, the front entry facade is nice, and I agree with Board Member Welsh in that the combination of the varying roof heights, etc., actually add to the design. I think the sculptural vertical pieces actually do contribute to the design. I think they could be integrated in different forms. However, I think a stucco integration is probably will not be as successful as, let's say, some other kind of a stronger vertical piece, sculptural piece. And if it's a sculptural piece, let it be a sculptural piece, perhaps of steel. Perhaps it could be ornamental steel or some other types of steel, or it could be some sort of a screened element where landscaping grows up of it. There's a lot of ways to kind of integrate this into the facade while maintaining that playfulness. I would like to note that the window orientations, the window selections, I think are done in a very tasteful way. There's a wide use of different types of windows and openings, different sizes. However, there's a harmonious nature to it, and I think that's positive as well. I agree with Board Member Smith in that reflective garage door is probably a poor choice, especially in these hillside areas. It could actually be reflected onto other properties as well, so I found that a bit odd. I also am not convinced that this copper color is the best color for the canopies. If it's natural copper, then I think it will patina well over time and it'll look nice. But this burnt orange, which is what I'm seeing on my screen at least, seems to be a bit loud, especially as it kind of wraps around the building. I like the way that the cabana is separated, not visible from the lower street. I think that is a good orientation. But in general, I love the simple renovation that they are proposing. And I think the overall design as illustrated will be a successful one, so I support the project.
Mr. Chair,
Mr. Welsh?
did you have any feedback or thoughts about that, the roof projection that was facing the street facade that I had noted, and I think that staff was intending to address in their condition number 3?
I agree with staff's comments and also your take on it as well. It could be scaled back, and I think the project will be better served if it is scaled back a bit.
Thank you.
Mr. Platt, can you perhaps summarize some of the comments that have been made so far? Perhaps new conditions or thoughts that have popped up?
Sure. Board Member Minas overall supported the project and didn't have any specific recommendations. Board Member Welch discussed the 3 vertical elements over to the right side of the facade where the entry doors are, suggesting that they not be made of stucco, and Board Member Simonian concurred on that opinion, to look for a different material, whether it's steel, a mesh material. I imagine there could be a variety of different materials they could use there. Just to clarify the staff comments, we were talking about the kind of the raised box just immediately next to the door, not about those three vertical pieces. And that was more in discussing the heights of the parapets. And then I realize now that it wasn't completely clear how we wrote that. We were talking about the height of the actual parapet itself rather than the height from the ground to the top of it. So we were just saying they should be shorter pieces, whether it stays at this height, at the maximum height, or comes down. But I'll get to that concept in a second.
Which area specifically, Mr. Platt, are you referring to? I know the roof plan is on PDF page 27.
Yeah, I'm looking at the drawing, so I don't have the page numbers that you have. But basically, it was the portion that Mr. Welch identified that faces the street, which is on Plan North on sheet A9. There's kind of just a heavy, smaller projection. And we also looked at the canopy over the long patio, the outdoor patio, which runs primarily along the east facade, which also felt very heavy where it's held up on these relatively narrow diameter columns. And I believe that's the same dimension as the part that faces over the street. So we just thought compressing that element to some degree could help balance out the kind of shapes and create more horizontality. But Mr. Welch specifically only talked about the part facing the street, and we didn't discuss the patio area. So we'll keep, unless the board wants to go beyond that, we could just have a condition for one or for both. Board member Smith believes that this needs an intensive historic survey. Aside from that issue, she did say if this were to move forward with an approval, she would like to see the angled feature removed, I believe the canopy kind of at the corner where the garage is, to be removed. She found some errors on the drawings that we can work with the architect to correct. She mentioned the concept of embodied energy. I'm not sure that is applicable, although it is true that any demolition of any material is a release of embodied energy that has already been expended. Let's see, she talked about the mirrored glass on the front, on the garage doors. We can, and board member Simonian seconded that, so we can certainly check with the applicant whether their intention was frosted glass, which seems somewhat typical for designs of this style. We see that a lot. I've never seen a mirrored glass garage door, but we can verify if that was the intention or not. And if the board wants to give further direction, if frosted glass is okay, and we'll just get rid of the reflective mirrored glass. And then finally, Mr. Simonian agreed with Mr. Welch about the height of that parapet area, or the projection facing the street. Agreed about the vertical, kind of the three columns over to the right side of the facade, and agreed about the glass. And then Mr. Simonian also added something that no other board members had mentioned about softening the color palette, where we're looking at this kind of burnt orange color on the drawings to create something that's probably a little less vivid, a little more subdued for the hillside. Mm-hmm. And I believe that's everything I caught in my notes.
Thank you, Mr. Platt. Is there a motion by any of the board members?
Mr. Chair, I will make a stab at this. So I will move to approve the project with conditions, but some amendments to conditions. One would be to add a condition to not have a mirrored finished garage door. Next would be to add a condition that the copper, as called out in the design, be specified as an actual copper appearing metal finish. To add a condition that the column features that the architect should choose another material more in keeping with making that a structural, or I mean a sculptural element as opposed to pure stucco. And then finally, to amend condition 3 to read that the design should reduce the massiveness of the roof projection on the street-facing facade.
Is there a second for that motion?
I second Mr. Welch's comments.
Roll call?
Okay, Board Member Minas,
Yay?
Board Member Smith,
Nay.
Board Member Welch,
Yes.
and Chair Simonian.
Yes.
Thank you. Motion passes 3-1.
Ms. Zimatitis, do we have another design review board hearing this year, or are we going to adjourn for the year? Ms. Zimatitis? Mr. Platt, do you hear us?
I'm sorry, yes?
Okay, yes, I had a question for staff. We were wondering, or I was wondering, if we're going to have another hearing this year, or we're adjourning for the rest of the year. We're going to basically not see one another for the rest of this year.
Apologies, Mr. Simonian. Did you, I believe there was a technical difficulty. Did you not hear me?
No.
You can't see our mouths moving.
I apologize. Oh, yes. As I was stating, that this is the final Design Review Board meeting for 2020. The next one will be on January the 14th. We would like to wish the Design Review Board members, their families, and everyone in the viewing TV audience very happy and healthy holiday season. And we look forward to seeing better times in 2021.
Hear, hear.
Yes, so long 2020, right? Let this year end. Happy holidays, everybody.
Mr. Chair, I move we adjourn.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Thank you very much.
Bye, everybody.